Hi, we're back. Now we're on the radiation therapy admissions procedures page. This page talks about, well, all the hoops that you're jumping through in order to make application for our program at Amarillo College. We'll kind of go through each one of these hopefully fairly quickly. First one, got to be at least 18 years old. Next, transcripts. For me, I need official transcripts. What I really want you to do is get a copy of official transcripts from any and all colleges that you've attended, universities as well, and put those transcripts in with all of your other application forms, all in one large manila envelope. The transcripts should be unopened in the original envelope that you received them from, or if you didn't receive it in an envelope, just put them in with the rest of the stuff anyway. But they need to be original transcripts and include them with all of your other stuff, shot records and all the other forms and everything. Everything comes together, should be received by me as in one packet, all at the same time. Also, keep in mind too that the transcripts are going to me and my office. Once you make application to Amarillo College, some people do that while they're applying for the radiation therapy program. Other people wait to see if they're accepted into radiation therapy before they do that. To me, it doesn't matter, but do note that whenever you do apply to Amarillo College, you need to send another copy of original transcripts to the registrar's office at Amarillo College. So eventually, if you're in the program, you're going to have two copies of original transcripts, one to the registrar's office, one to me. If you've been attending Amarillo College and AC is the only place that you've attended, then you don't have to send any transcripts to the registrar's office, obviously, but you still do have to send a copy of original transcripts to me. For your privacy concerns, I really can't get a copy of transcripts on my own from the college. They have to be obtained by you, then sent to me. The next one is shot records. The ones of concern there, of importance to me there, are the one I really like to mention is the varicella one, the chickenpox one. That one, if it's really important to note that if you have had the chickenpox or have had the shots for varicella, which is chickenpox, then do not get the shots again. If you've had the chickenpox, don't get the vaccination. That can result in really serious health care concerns for you later on down the road. So if you have trouble, if you're like me, if somebody said, Tony, I need your shot records from 20 years ago, I would have a really hard time digging those up. So I'd be tempted to just revaccinate for a lot of stuff. And I would do that, okay, that's fine for measles and mumps and stuff like that. But for varicella, for chickenpox, no, don't do that. If you have trouble finding your original shot records for that, then there's several options. One, you can go to a doctor that you had when you were a child that can verify that you had the chickenpox. So a doctor's note saying that you've had chickenpox is fine, would work for us. Another way you can do that, if you've lost track of your doctor or just can't get those records, period, but you know that you've had the shots or that you've had the chickenpox, what you can do is you can go to your current doctor and ask them to check your titers. That's spelled T-I-D-E-R-S. So tell them you need your titers checked for chickenpox. And they'll draw some blood and they'll basically just check and see if you've acquired the immunity for chickenpox. And that can serve as proof of immunization as well. So that's a kind of expensive test though. So if you've got other ways to do that, then I advise doing that, because I think some people have told me that costs more than $100. So if you've got other ways to just get the shot records themselves, that's the way to go. But it's really important to note that the healthcare concerns for the chickenpox can be very serious down the road if you revaccinate. As far as the mumps goes, the hepatitis B and stuff, just follow the instructions in the application packet and send that stuff in at the time that it's appropriate. For the TB test, you don't have to get the TB test done until you know that you're accepted in the program, because the TB test is something that you have to renew every year. So if you do a TB test now, then you'll just have to redo it 2 more times while you're in the program. So if you wait until you find out if you're accepted in the program, then you'll only have to do it 1 more time. So don't get the TB test done yet. Also, you don't have to start the hepatitis B just yet until you know you're accepted in the program or not. But the other stuff, the mumps, measles, tetanus, those kinds of things, I do need those records as part of your application packet process. The next one is the program application form found elsewhere in the document. Oh, don't forget the keyword stuff too. Along with all the other forms that you send in for your admissions, send in your keyword stuff as well for this orientation stuff. But getting back to the program application form, that's a basic general form that just tells me, how I can contact you, basically address, phone number, nearest relative, things like that if I need to be able to contact you. The next one is the Division of Allied Health Release and Waiver of Liability form. That one is a standard form that anyone applying for any healthcare career at Amarillo College is going to be filling out, that exact same form. But that being said, I'd like to take a minute and talk about this waiver form, because I've had some students in the past, some applicants in the past tell me, and I think I would be thinking this too, they tell me that as they're filling out the application information, they're looking at the waiver form and they're thinking to themselves, now, I want to be working with radiation, and they're asking me to sign a waiver form. How safe is this anyway? So I'd like to take a minute and just talk about safety and radiation safety in the field of radiation therapy. Well, for me and my own self, I value my health, and I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize that. But you don't have to take my word for radiation safety and how radiation therapy can be a very safe field. We all wear radiation measuring devices while we're working in radiation therapy. Students wear them as well, and they measure how much radiation you're exposed to. And there's federal limits that are considered acceptable limits of exposure for people working in radiation therapy. And our students always stay, and our therapists always stay way, way, way below those acceptable limits of exposure. To give you a relative idea of what kinds of radiation exposure we're talking about how much radiation exposure we're talking about, you, just being a human being alive on planet Earth, are already getting about the same amount of radiation that the typical radiation therapist gets working in the field. How's that so? Well, when you walk out in the parking lot from your car to the grocery store and then back, you get exposed to some ultraviolet radiation from the sun. All of us get some of that. When you're just living on planet Earth, the Earth's crust seeps through some radioactive material, very teeny tiny amounts, but nonetheless it's barely measurable, but it's there. There's some radiation that seeps through the Earth's crust and we all get exposed to. There's even some radiation produced naturally in our own bodies. Again, it's hardly enough to even be able to measure, but it's there. There's not much, very little, but it's there. Add those three things up together, the stuff produced in our body, the stuff seeping up from the Earth's crust, and the ultraviolet radiation from the sun, and that amounts to about the same radiation exposure that the typical radiation therapist gets exposed to working in the field of radiation therapy. In other words, you probably haven't been losing a lot of sleep at night worrying about the exposure to radiation that you've been getting just being a human being alive on planet Earth. You might be worrying about it now that I've been telling you all this stuff, but actually there's nothing to worry about. But likewise, I'm not too terribly concerned about the radiation safety factor working in radiation therapy. We take radiation protection very seriously, which is precisely why we're so really good at protecting ourselves. When you go and do your clinical visit, if you haven't done that already, then you'll notice, or if you ask questions, that the therapists stand behind a 6-foot thick concrete wall with a lead-lined door when they turn the machine on. And nobody can be in the room while the machine is on except the patient. There's no residual stuff floating around, no radioactivity floating around. Our radiation doesn't work like that. Our radiation is like a light switch. When it's on, it's on. When it's off, it's completely off. It's gone. It's done its stuff. So really, there's not much reason to get really any exposure at all in working in radiation therapy. In fact, I've never had anything ever show up on my radiation detecting device. So I honestly believe that a much more realistic healthcare concern working in the field of radiation therapy is maybe hurting your back while lifting a patient, or hurting your knees while lifting a patient, something like that. I think that's much more of a realistic healthcare concern. We don't take radiation lightly, and we teach you and we train you very well on how to protect yourself. But there's really not much to it. You just stand behind the 6-foot thick concrete wall, and that pretty well takes care of it. In fact, about the only time we get any possible exposure to radiation is whenever we work in a kind of an observational area that is very much like what the X-ray people work in or work with all the time. all day, every day. And even though they work with this stuff all day, every day, they still are able to stay well below the acceptable limits put out by the federal government. And we stay way, way, way below them. We actually get a lot less radiation exposure than any other radiation healthcare field. Again, that's not something that really terribly concerns me, and we're really good at protecting ourselves. It's in our own self-interest. Still, nonetheless, I still get jokes from all my friends and family, and you'll hear it too. Ah, you glow in the dark, and this and that, and I just kind of go, yeah, whatever. So that's my little talk about radiation protection and radiation safety. So before we move along, I know this segment is actually going to take two little videos, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and then we'll pick up the rest of this stuff on the second video for the admission procedures.